John, how do you know if someone is lying to you?
There are several indicators. Suppose you ask someone a question, and when answering he squirms and looks side to side. That means that he is not being forthcoming.
That makes sense. The squirming seems to represent an attempt to wriggle off the hook, and the sideways glances would seem to be an attempt to escape the piercing gaze of the interrogator.
That is very sharp, Lisa. Also, if they respond not by answering your question, but by making counter-accusations or otherwise addressing red herrings, then they are probably lying.
Can you give an example?
Let's say you ask Smith if he stole your money. The actual answer is either yes or no. So if he responds with a lecture about what a moral person he is not answering the question, and he is probably lying.
That tracks. I have found that liars respond with performances, as opposed to answers. They put on a show. Their level of emotion is excessive, and they may use gratuitous profanity or superfluous gestures.
Exactly. Also, people who cannot answer truthfully without incriminating themselves will do everything they can to avoid giving an answer. If the answer they give follows a long series of attempts to stall you or deflect your inquiry, then that answer is probably a lie.
What are some other indications that someone is lying?
Throat clearing and swallowing are big tip-offs. Liars tend to clear their throat and swallow before and during their lies.
Fascinating.
Liars also tend to engage in grooming behavior.
You mean like stroking their beard or playing with their hair?
Exactly. Another big tip-off is their posture. Liars often have a bolt upright and comfortable posture, and they are likely to have excessive muscular tonicity. They are likely to purse their lips and have an excessively tight and mask-like expression.
That's interesting.
The liar's affect also tends to be off. He looks sad when telling a happy story and happy when telling a sad one.
That makes sense.
And a lie is often preceded by a fleeting micro-expression that is totally at odds with the tenor of the story that follows. When you ask Smith what he did during lunch, he briefly looks perturbed before settling into a joke-filled story about his innocent lunchtime antics.
So there tends to be a lack of congruence between the liar's words and his body language.
Yes, and in some cases this can be quite blatant, as when they say yes while shaking their head, for example.
We've been talking about body language. But what about what he actually says? Is there anything distinctive about it?
Yes. First of all, unnecessary details are volunteered and necessary ones are omitted. Liars will often linger on incidental points and go into great detail about them, while providing only very schematic information about essentials.
Please clarify.
When you ask Smith what he did during lunch, he tells you that he went to a restaurant. But he doesn't give you the name of the restaurant. Or he doesn't mention what he ate there, or how much it cost, or whether he liked it. But he does talk at length about the homeless person whom he passed on the way to his restaurant.
What is that about?
The person does have detailed and accurate information about a homeless person, but that information is derived from another occasion. Maybe he had an encounter with a homeless person last week. He is looking for any opportunity to inject lifelike details into his false story so as to give it credibility.
And the absence of relevant details reflects the fact that he did not go to the restaurant in question.
Yes, and liars often self-correct. They get midway through a sentence, then stop, then start a new sentence.
So they are likely to use sentence fragments instead of actual sentences.
That's right. And phrases or conceits are repeated in an almost ritualistic manner. Liars will repeatedly mention the ball game or the sassy waitress or the peach cobbler from heaven. In a truthful story, such expressions may come up and they may even be used more than once. But if they recur with rhythmic consistency, then what you're hearing is a fabrication.
What is that about?
They are trying to construct a scenario in their minds and actually make themselves half believe it. So they are seizing on some realistic-seeming detail and using it as a way of anchoring their phony story in reality.
So the conceit being repeated is like a nail, and the repetition is a way of hammering the nail down.
Well put. A related fact is that lies involve excessive use of undefined pronouns. In a lie, he and she and they repeatedly occur without any indication who these pronouns refer to. And this is often compensated for with excessive references to Spotty Mike or Disco Freddy or Kathy with a K.
I think I understand. The undefined pronouns happen when the person is concocting their story, and the repeated references to Disco Freddy or Spotty Mike happen after they have started out fill out their story with some characters.
That's right. And made-up stories tend to be littered with vague allusions to inside information and inside jokes. Liars often use suggestive but vague expressions that put the burden of proof on the other person's shoulders. For example, they may repeatedly say "you know," suggesting that they have given you information when in actuality they have not done so.
Yes, I knew a serial liar whose stories were always loaded with winks and nods and allusions, but it was never made clear what those allusions actually referred to.
Right. Most people are afraid to admit that they are ignorant, and they would rather pretend to be in the know than continue with their line of inquiry. And that's why the liar uses this technique.
Can all of this be summed up in a single sentence?
Yes. Defensive responses are lies.